Hey again, everyone, it's Rob Ryder, and it's Wednesday, July 28th, 2021, and I say it's time a peace officer taught the elected a civics lesson. And so if you know a peace officer, please have them watch this, and if you are a peace officer, please give me a half an hour, and I'll show you that you have the power to call these people who claim to be elected to prove that they're elected. If they don't have the proof, then they're not elected, and you have a duty to arrest them. It says so in the election law. Again, I'm going to use Michigan's election law as the example, but I have to believe that you can find similar authority so you can use your power, right, in your own state's election law. But like in Michigan's election law, it says peace officers' duty to institute proceedings. It is hereby made the duty of any police, sheriff, or other peace officer present and having knowledge of any violation of any other provisions of this act to forthwith institute criminal proceedings for the punishment of such offender. So, for instance, if your election law says that some officer has to have posted a bond and there's no bond posted, well, then they violated the act and you need to arrest them, institute criminal proceedings. All right, so who's a peace officer? Well, again, for Michigan, in the Firearms Act, it says a peace officer means, right, a law enforcement officer, as the term is defined under Section 2 on the Michigan Commission of Law Enforcement Standards Act. That'd be the MCOLS Act. I hope everybody who's a law enforcement officer has an MCOLS certificate in your full legal name, or you're really not a law enforcement officer. Let's assume that you do. Well, then that, and who is required to carry a firearm in the course of his or her duties as a law enforcement officer. Not privately, but because it's part of your duty. If you have a duty as a law enforcement officer to carry a firearm, you are a peace officer. And as a peace officer, then you have a duty to institute proceedings. I cannot make it any clearer. Right? Your failure to do so is you failing to do your duty. So don't blame somebody else the way the fucking world is. You're the problem. I'm going to say you didn't know this before, right? So that's my job. I'm bringing you the knowledge, but you have the power. I can't do it. You're going to have to. So here's another example in the election law where it talks about false designation of incumbency, where any person who advertises or uses in any campaign, otherwise indicates, represents, or gives the impression that the candidate for a public office is the incumbent, when in fact the candidate is not the incumbent, is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable as provided under Section 934. So if it required a bond to be posted and a bond was not posted, the person was never qualified for the office. So they're not the incumbent. They're just an imposter impersonating an officer to usurp their authority. Do you see how this works? And this is happening from the president all the way down through all the different elected offices where none of them have been elected. Now, they may have gone to an election or believe they did and think they have the votes, but if they didn't do the things to qualify, then they're not qualified for office. So that's up to the police to take care of. So, here's an example, right? This is just last week in Berry County, Michigan, right? Berry County Sheriff's Office launches a probe in the 2020 voting machines. Why are you putting a probe in the voting machines? Why don't you go probe their frickin' records to see if the oath of office has been filed? Right? Or did they file their bond? And if they filed a piece of paper that says it's an oath of office, well, is it properly done? These are all things that can be done by the Sheriff's Department. And, it don't require anybody else to do it. Let me show you this real quick. I'm using this as an example to show you, right? This was a felony complaint filed against Dana Reed Smith, right? Where was the case at? It wasn't in the district court or the circuit court. It was in a police court, right? The 40K CSD, which probably means Kalkaska County Sheriff Department. The sheriff has his own freaking court. He was able to open up a case all by himself. Well, that's what you would do in this case, right? It would be a case opened up in the Sheriff's Department or police court or, whatever the court is that's available to the peace officers, other than the one that's run by the esquires, right? Because, they're just a bunch of devil-worshipping pagans anyways. Right? An esquire is, Jesus woed attorneys for a reason. Call them all children of the devil, and you should believe it. We'll get back to them later some other time, right? But this is where we're at, because we need to get this fixed, or your children are going to have to go to school this year wearing masks. You're going to be mandated to take a vaccine that you don't want to take. They're going to be taught, your kids will be taught critical race theory, and because you're white, you're going to be the enemy. Well, you don't have to put up with it. The people that are telling to do all this shit aren't really elected. So let me give you some examples, right? So, governor, lieutenant governor, oath of office, shall take, scribe oath provided in Section 1, Article 11 of the state constitution, right? Then what causes a vacancy, right? A neglect or refusal to take and subscribe to the constitutional oath of office and deposit the same in the manner and within the time prescribed by law. Well, I can show you that Whitmer didn't do that. Where are you? So this is the oath of office that somebody calling themselves Gretchen Whitmer filed to be the governor. All right, well, there's just a few things wrong with this. Let's start with the fact that her name isn't Gretchen Whitmer, it's Gretchen Esther Whitmer. So she did not properly identify herself. And so that makes this piece of paper illegal. Right? She used an alias. You can't do that on an official document. There's a reason people have what's called a full legal name. It's to use in legal matters, and that's what an oath is. Well, you could go further and talk about how the grammar is different in this oath, where it's Constitution of this state, and the C and the S are capitalized. When you go look in the Constitution for Michigan, the C and the S are not capitalized. So it's not the same oath. Right? They changed the grammar. But, all those things you might dispute a bit, but what you cannot dispute is the fact that she's claiming to have done it before a notary. And according to Michigan law, a notary cannot administer an oath to the governor. So this is not an oath of office. It's a piece of paper counterfeiting an oath of office. Gretchen Esther Whitmer has violated the Michigan election law, and a peace officer should arrest her. Start criminal proceedings. Now look, I've tried to do it myself, right? I took a complaint form, felony complaint form, filled it out to the United States, was the complainant. I was going to be the complaining witness, right? Pointing out the things I pointed out, which I'm not going to go through all this right now, but if you wanted to watch, it was pretty interesting, right? Go to Rob Ryder, ROBBBRYDER on YouTube and look for Gretchen Has a Hearing, right? It was about 10 months ago. You can search these by upload date, right? And I did a whole video on this thing, right? But, so I filled this out and I sent it to the 63rd, right? 63B Judicial District Court, 17th Judicial Circuit. Well, sometime later, I get from the court, I get some mail, right? The Staff Sergeant Robert Alverlewski. What was in there? It was a hearing, right? Notice a hearing saying that Gretchen Esther, had to appear in person for a hearing on felony complaint that was filed at the 63rd District Court. Defendant is required to attend this hearing. Well, she never did attend it. And I really didn't do anything with it for quite some time, but right now I am trying to get a subpoena for it. My point is, well, there you go, right? It's not hard to find shit to put on paper to say they did it. So, however, you all did it to get the Dana Reed Smith a felony right through a police court. Well, that's what you would need to do. Take it to that office instead. So, Whitmer's she is not the governor of Michigan. Yeah, here's where it is. Constitution of the United States and then Constitution of the state. Right? And then there's another version, which was from the 1908, which is lowercase Constitution of the state, lowercase Constitution of the United States, and lowercase Constitution of the state. So, none of these are being done. And then it goes on to say that no other oath or affirmation, religious test shall be required as qualification in the office or public trust. Well, that's not true, right? That's unconstitutional because by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States, it lists the people who have to take an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, right? And then in the very first law passed after the ratification of the Constitution, signed into law on June 1st, 1789 by President George Washington, right, that the oath or affirmation required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the following form. I, A.B., do solemnly swear or affirm, as case may be, to support the Constitution of the United States. Notice it has the name after the word I. Right? Well, that's not what Whitmer took. There's no name after her I. So this oath does not satisfy the form required by the Constitution, and yet they're taking an oath to support the Constitution, and the Constitution says we need to take an oath if you're an officer of the 6th article, under the 6th article of the Constitution. And they said, well, in that case, this is the oath you need to take, right? I, state your name, Gretchen Esther Whitmer should be there, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, right? Just that oath. There's nothing else can be added. It's got quote marks by it. That's the form of the oath. Well, that's not what they had her pretend to take. So whether the state wants you to take another oath or not is up to the state. This is the federal government. The national Constitution says if you want to be an Article 6 officer, which is all, United States officers and the state executive, judicial officers, and members of the state legislature, you need to take this oath. And then if your state says to take another oath, well, then so be it. Take the oath. You had to take this one. Well, this oath then has been put into the United States Code, right? So now it's a federal law, 4 USC 101, oath by members of legislatures and officers. Every member of state legislature and every executive and judicial officer of a state shall, before he proceeds to execute duties of his office, take an oath in the following form, to wit, I, A.B., do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. So, whether you got elected or not, you got to take the oath. Elected or appointed. And they're not taking it. So really, there's nobody holding a proper oath of office. Okay, so let's look at who some of these pretenders are then. All right, so we got the governor and the lieutenant governor. Then we got the Secretary of State and the Attorney General. Now, they have to put an oath of office and a bond. All right, so they got to take the same oath and put a bond in. Well, where's the bond? All right, so what's that? Who's our Attorney General? Nessel, right? So she's supposed to deposit oath and bond with the Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State is supposed to deposit an oath and a bond with the Attorney General. Well, it's simple enough for a peace officer to go in there and say, hey, I need to see these things. If they can't show them to you, well, then you need to start criminal proceedings. What causes a vacancy? His or her neglect or refusal to take and subscribe to the constitutional oath of office and deposit the same in a manner within the prescribed time by law. Well, it says in 4 USC 101, that's the easiest one to look at, right, that before he proceeds to execute the duties of his office. When do you need to do it? Well, before you pretend to, you start acting like the Secretary of State. That's when. Not after the fact, before the fact. Okay. All right. Well, United States Senator. His refusal or neglect to take this oath of office, right? So this isn't the oath that the senators take or the representatives take. I should get that one real quick, too. Hang on a second. Right. If you, you can Google these things or find them on YouTube, right, where you can watch the senators take their oath or the House take their oath. And these are the words they're taking. This oath right here. I, A.B., do solemnly swear, da-da-da-da. So help me God. Right, which is part of the oath. Well, if you look at the 6th article of the Constitution, right, religious tests are not allowed. So this cannot be the oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution because it has a religious test. So they're not taking the proper oath. And if you listen to the president-elect on Inauguration Day take an oath and look at the oath that's in the second article, you'll see that when he's taking it, that the Chief Justice has him add his full legal name to the oath, which isn't in there to be done. It just says I, goes on. It doesn't have I, state your name. And at the end, he says, so help me God. So we add a religious test. Right? So these are intentionally being done by esquires to make sure that there's no properly seated officers of the United States or the several states. And this is why, if you carry a gun and you're a law enforcement officer, well, you're a peace officer and you can do something about it. But nobody else can, because none of these other people have any freaking authority. They're just pretending to be elected. Right? The 6th article of the Constitution says the senators, this is subsection 3 of Article 6. The senators and representative before mentioned and the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. All right, so if you want to claim to be holding an office under the United States, you have to have taken this oath that they're talking about that's in 1 Stat 23. The oath or affirmation required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the following form. If you didn't take this oath, you have no authority under the United States, which means you're foreign to the United States and I'm not in your jurisdiction. And so that's what they've done. See, they've set up this parallel jurisdiction called the democracy. Well, there is no democracy talked about in the Constitution. Only thing talked about in the Constitution is the Republican form of government. And we ain't got one of those right now because there's no officers. So we got to have the Great Reset, right? And that would be, well, go in and arrest everybody who's pretending to be an elected officer, and we'll figure the rest out tomorrow. But let's start there, right? It's your duty to do so, right? Because the senator didn't take the proper oath. Or the representative, right? His refusal or neglect to take his oath of office. Well, that's the one that's in 1 Stat 23 specifically. Right? State senators. What causes a vacancy? Well, the same thing. His refusal or neglect to take and subscribe his oath of office. County officers. Well, they got to have an oath of office and a bond. Shall give a bond the amount prescribed by law and da-da-da-da. So where's their bond? They'll all have something that's been filed that they're going to claim as an oath of office. But when you read them, you'll soon see that it's not an oath of office because they did not use their full legal name. They did not use the proper grammar. They did not execute an oath that satisfies the federal Constitution. Right? That's your adjudicative facts to put on your complaint so that it can be processed. Right? So what causes a vacancy? His refusal or neglect to subscribe constitutional office and deposit the same in a manner and within the time prescribed by law, or his refusal or neglect to give bond in the amount and manner within the time prescribed by law. And I'm not talking about general liability insurance policy. They have to go get a bond. Right? County auditor. He needs to have an oath and a bond. County road commissioner. He needs to have an oath and a bond. State board of education. What do they have to have? Competent tribunal neglect or refusal to take and subscribe the constitutional oath of office. And then school boards, right? They got to have an acceptance of office and take an oath. All right, so this is the point. Go to the school board and just say, I need to see your oaths of office and see if they've been done right. If they haven't, well, then put an end to it, right? They have no authority to tell your children to do anything unless they're actually the school board. Right? Supreme Court justices subscribe constitutional oath of office. Well, that would be the one in 1 Stat 23. Appeals court judges, his neglect, refusal to subscribe constitutional oath of office. Right? Don't have any fear of these esquires pretending to be judges. They're not judges. They didn't file an oath of office. They're just fork-tongued, sons of the devil pretending to be a court. They're not a constitutional court. They didn't take an oath of office. What they are is an ecclesiastic tribunal that's trying to get you to agree that they have authority. Or his neglect, refusal to take subscribe constitutional oath of office. But who actually has the power? Right? The people with the guns have the power. Remember that. Municipal court judges take an oath of office. So you can find all these people had to take a constitutional oath of office. And in the case of judges, it isn't talking, nowhere in here did it say, except for a municipal judge, it talks about the oath in the state constitution. But these other ones are, just a constitutional oath of office. Well, that would definitely be the oath that's in 1 Stat 23. So, there you are. If they didn't take an oath of office, then it's time for a peace officer to teach them a lesson. Right? Go institute criminal proceedings. Go put them in a holding cell. They'll find religion really quick. And they either do the right thing and act properly, or, they're going to be gone. But that's the problem we're dealing with, folks, is the people that you're listening to don't have an oath of office. So why are you listening to them? Yeah, so if you're a peace officer, bone up a bit on your election law, right? If you want to, contact me, right, and say, hey, I'm a peace officer wherever. Right? And you want to do something, well, I'll help you find what you need where it says in the law that you have the authority. Now, how you actually do the paperwork to get the felony and so forth, I don't know. Right? But I know that in Dana Reed Smith's case, his came through a police court. Didn't come through the district or circuit court. So apparently you all have some style of court that we're not familiar with. Right? And that's what we're going to use. So there you go. Right? You can contact me at courtofrecord@aol.com or call me 616-712-6179. But, I'm putting it all on you now, peace officers. You have the power to stop this craziness that's happening in the United States. And if you don't do it, well, nobody else can. Except the military, and that's a whole different Ricky Lake show we'll have to get into in a different video. But, we don't need them. We need you. So contact me. Let's, put an end to the madness as soon as possible. Alrighty. You all have a great day now. See you.